They say actions speak louder than words. But what if actions themselves had a language, one that only a few can truly hear? Imagine walking into a room and instantly sensing who's confident, who's hiding something, who's nervous, and who's just pretending to be in control. Imagine reading people as easily as flipping through the pages of a book. In this audiobook, you'll learn how to do exactly that: decode anyone instantly. These are not cheap mind tricks or body language cliches. These are tested psychological insights drawn from the best of behavioral science, emotional intelligence, and real-world communication. So sit back, clear your mind, and let's begin our journey through powerful chapters, each one designed to help you understand the silent language every human speaks, but few truly listen to. Chapter 1. The lens of perception, seeing without judging. Before you can read people, you must first clean the lens you're looking through. Most people don't truly observe. They interpret, they assume, they judge. They see what they expect to see instead of what is actually in front of them. That's where misunderstanding begins. Think about how you react to people in your daily life. Someone crosses their arms during a conversation. What do you think? They're closed off, maybe. A co-worker avoids your eyes. They must be lying. Someone checks their phone while you're talking. They're bored or rude. But what if the person crossing their arms is just cold? What if the one avoiding your gaze is shy or respectful? What if the person checking their phone just got an urgent message? We live inside our own stories, and we often project those stories onto others. The first step to reading people accurately is to stop writing their story for them. Seeing what is, not what you want it to be. Observation without judgment sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest things to do. It means you have to train yourself to see behavior as data raw, neutral information, before your brain starts assigning meaning to it. When you see someone tapping their foot, you note the action, tapping foot. You don't rush to say impatient or nervous. You're simply recording the signal. When you see someone leaning back, you note leaned back in chair. Maybe they're relaxed. Maybe they're distancing themselves. You don't know yet, and that's the point. This simple practice opens up a whole new world of awareness. Instead of jumping to conclusions, you start collecting pieces of a puzzle. Over time, those pieces form patterns, and those patterns tell you the truth. Think of yourself as a detective, not a judge. A detective gathers evidence first and draws conclusions later. A judge starts with an opinion and tries to prove it right. Most people are judges. Few are detectives. When you observe without bias, you begin to see things others miss: micro-expressions, subtle shifts in tone, tiny changes in posture. You start to notice what feels off, what aligns, and what contradicts someone's words. That's how real understanding begins. The problem with assumptions. Our brains are wired to make quick judgments. It's a survival mechanism in ancient times. We needed to decide fast if something was dangerous or safe. But in modern communication, those same snap judgments can be deeply misleading. Imagine meeting someone new who doesn't smile much. Your brain might whisper, "They don't like me." But that might not be true at all. Maybe they're just tired. Maybe they're naturally serious. Maybe they're nervous and don't know how to express warmth yet. When you assume, you stop listening. You close the door on curiosity. And the moment you do that, you stop reading the person in front of you and start reading your own imagination instead. That's why emotional intelligence begins with humility. The humility to admit, "I don't know what this means yet, but I'm paying attention." How to train your perception. You can sharpen your perception like a muscle. Step 1. Slow down. Don't rush to understand someone in the first 30 seconds. Let them reveal themselves over time. Notice the difference between their public and private selves, how their energy shifts in different settings. Step 2. Describe, don't diagnose. If you catch yourself thinking, "She's rude," replace it with a neutral description. "She interrupted twice." This keeps you in observation mode instead of judgment mode. Step 3. Observe clusters. One single behavior rarely tells the full story. Instead, look for patterns. If someone avoids eye contact once, it might mean nothing. But if they avoid it repeatedly whenever a certain topic arises, that's meaningful. A single signal is a whisper. A pattern is a sentence. Step 4. Separate your emotions from your perception. If someone's behavior annoys you, that emotion colors what you see. You might misread their signals because you're reacting instead of observing. Take a breath, step back, and see again with calm eyes. Step 5. Be patient with silence. Many people fill silence with assumptions. When someone doesn't answer quickly, you might think they're hiding something or judging you. But often, they're just thinking. Silence is not an absence of communication, it's a form of it. The power of neutral observation. Let's imagine you're watching two co-workers talking. One leans forward, nodding slightly. The other's arms are crossed, shoulders tight. You could jump to the conclusion that one is open, the other defensive. But with true observation, you'd simply note, asterisk, person A leans forward. Asterisk, person A nods. Asterisk, person B's arms are crossed. Asterisk, person B's shoulders are tight. That's it. Now, over the next few minutes, you might notice person B's arms uncross as the conversation warms up. You might hear their voice soften. Suddenly, you have context. Maybe they were tense at first, but they relaxed as trust built. That's the story, one that only patience could reveal. This kind of awareness doesn't just make you a better reader of people, it makes you more compassionate. You start to understand that behavior is communication, not character. People aren't good or bad because they fidget, avoid, or act differently. They're just expressing themselves in the only way they know how in that moment, quieting the noise. The hardest part about observing others is not what they're doing, it's what your own mind is saying while they're doing it. Your brain runs commentary constantly. That was weird. Why did he look away? She's not paying attention. Those inner reactions are noise, and that noise blinds you to reality. To truly see others, you must quiet that inner chatter. Take a mental step back. Pretend you're a camera recording what's happening. Cameras don't judge, they just capture. The clearer your mental lens, the more accurate your reading. Mindfulness helps here. Before a conversation, pause and ground yourself. Notice your breathing. Let your thoughts settle. Then, when you interact, focus completely on the other person, their tone, rhythm, movements, pauses. You'll start to see more by doing less. Seeing beyond the obvious. Once you start observing without judgment, you'll notice how much of people's communication is hidden in plain sight. The way someone enters a room, how they hold their phone, where they place their hands when nervous, every detail tells you something. A person who always keeps their belongings close might crave control or security. Someone who speaks rapidly may fear losing your attention. A person who rarely interrupts may have learned that being heard isn't easy for them. None of these are criticisms, they're insights. They reveal what someone values, fears, or needs. And when you understand that, your relationships transform. You no longer react to behavior, you respond to emotion. You stop labeling people and start understanding them. The true goal. Reading people isn't about manipulation or power. It's about empathy and clarity. When you can observe others without distortion, you begin to meet them where they truly are, not where your assumptions place them. The world becomes more transparent. You notice who's anxious behind a smile, who's sincere beneath a mask of confidence, who's struggling but pretending to be fine. And because you can see them clearly, you can connect with them deeply. To read people well, you must first master yourself. To understand others, you must first silence your own noise. Clean your lens. Observe without judgment. Because when you see people as they are, not as you imagine them to be, the world begins to make sense in a way it never has before. Chapter 2. The Language of the Body. If words are the script of communication, the body is the stage on which truth performs. People may try to disguise their feelings with carefully chosen words, but their body almost always betrays them. Every gesture, posture, and movement is a clue, a signal from the unconscious mind that reveals what someone is really thinking or feeling. Learning to read this language doesn't make you a mind reader. It makes you a better listener, one who listens not just to words, but to the silent music of behavior. Most of us underestimate how much we communicate without speaking. A raised eyebrow, a shift in weight, a subtle touch to the face, these are not random. They are the body's way of speaking when the mouth remains silent. Once you learn to notice them, you'll never look at people the same way again. Every body tells a story. Imagine you're having a conversation with someone. They're smiling, nodding, saying all the right things, but something feels off. Their shoulders are slightly hunched. Their feet point toward the door. Their arms stay tightly crossed across their chest. You can sense that, despite their words, they want the interaction to end. That's the power of body language. It reveals the truth behind the performance. Our body speaks the emotional truth that words try to hide. This is not because we are dishonest by nature, but because we are layered beings. We often say what is polite, expected, or safe, but our body still whispers what is real. When you learn to see those whispers, you begin to understand people on a deeper level. You can tell when someone's interest is genuine or forced, when they're confident or merely pretending to be, when they're calm or suppressing anxiety. The importance of context. But before you dive into decoding every gesture, remember one golden rule: context is everything. A single signal means little on its own. A person folding their arms might be defensive, yes, or they might just be cold or comfortable that way. A quick glance away might suggest nervousness, or it might simply mean they're thinking. Reading body language isn't about memorizing gestures. It's about understanding patterns in context. Watch how someone's body behaves across different moments, topics, and settings. Do they lean in when engaged, then pull back when uncomfortable? Do their gestures grow smaller when they're uncertain? Does their face light up when talking about certain people or subjects? Each individual has their own baseline, their natural way of being. Learn that first. Once you know how someone behaves when they're relaxed, you can recognize when something changes. And it's in those changes that truth is revealed. The 3 channels of the body. You can think of body language as having 3 main channels: posture, gestures, and movement. Posture tells you about someone's attitude or level of confidence. Upright posture with open shoulders usually signals comfort or assertiveness. Slumped or closed posture may suggest discomfort, fatigue, or insecurity. But posture is also cultural and situational. A bowed head could mean humility in one context and shame in another. Gestures are the punctuation marks of body language. When someone's hands move naturally and fluidly as they speak, it often reflects comfort and enthusiasm. But when gestures become stiff, restrained, or overly exaggerated, it may signal tension, performance, or overcompensation. Watch for what's missing. 2. A person who suddenly stops gesturing might be holding something back. Movement reflects emotional energy. Fast, restless movements often reveal anxiety or excitement. Slow, controlled movements often indicate calm or dominance. When someone freezes, goes completely still, it's often a subconscious reaction to stress, like a deer caught in headlights. Every motion carries meaning. Your job as a reader is not to judge it, but to notice it. Micro-expressions, the truth in a flash. Sometimes, truth doesn't appear in body posture or movement at all. It flashes across the face for just a fraction of a second. These are micro-expressions, involuntary facial expressions that reveal hidden emotions. They're the momentary crack in the mask before the conscious mind covers it. A micro-expression of fear might be a sudden widening of the eyes. Disgust can show as a quick wrinkle of the nose. Contempt is often one side of the mouth tightening in a half smile. These signals appear so quickly that you can't fake them, but with practice, you can learn to spot them. The face, more than any other part of the body, tells us what words cannot. But don't overanalyze. One flash of emotion doesn't mean deception. It simply means there's more beneath the surface. The language of space. Body language isn't just about movement, it's also about distance. How people use space says volumes about how they feel. When someone feels connected or comfortable, they naturally move closer. When they feel threatened, they step back or turn slightly away. Personal space is like an invisible bubble that expands and contracts with emotion. Notice when someone moves closer to you without realizing it, that's rapport. Notice when someone subtly angles their body toward the exit, that's discomfort or disengagement. These small shifts tell you far more than their words ever could. Even the direction of someone's feet matters. People often point their feet toward where they want to go. During conversation, if their feet are pointed at you, they're mentally present. If they're turned toward the door, part of them is already gone. The hands' honesty or defense. Hands are often the most revealing part of body language because they're hard to control consciously. When people feel open and relaxed, their hands are visible, palms up, gestures fluid. When they're nervous, their hands often retreat into pockets, behind their back, or folded tightly in front of them. Touching the face or neck can signal self-soothing, a subconscious attempt to calm oneself under stress. Rubbing the back of the neck, fiddling with jewelry, adjusting sleeves, these are often signs of discomfort or anxiety. Watch for congruence. Do someone's hands match their words? A person who says, "I'm confident," while hiding their hands, is sending mixed messages. When gestures align with speech, you can trust what you hear. When they don't, pay attention, the body might be telling you something the words aren't. How to practice body reading. You don't need to become a walking lie detector to understand body language. Start small. Observe people in neutral situations at a cafe, in a meeting, or on a train. Watch how they interact. Who leans forward? Who takes up space? Who pulls inward? You'll start noticing patterns of comfort and discomfort, dominance and submission, connection and avoidance. Next, try noticing your own body language. When do you cross your arms? When do you fidget? What happens to your posture when you're confident or nervous? The more you understand your own physical expressions, the more accurately you can read them in others. Listening with your eyes. Ultimately, reading body language is about empathy. It's seeing what others feel before they speak. When someone tenses their shoulders, you sense their unease. When their body relaxes, you feel their comfort. It's not about catching lies. It's about catching truth. The most skilled readers don't use body language to manipulate. They use it to connect. They adjust their tone, words, and energy based on what the other person's body is saying. They know when to give space, when to lean in, when to stay silent. Because when you truly pay attention to someone's body, you're giving them something rare, the gift of being seen without words. And that's the real secret of reading people, not to expose them, but to understand them. The body speaks constantly. Most people just don't know how to listen. When you do, the world becomes clearer. Every gesture a sentence, every movement a story, every silence a truth waiting to be heard. Chapter 3. The voice beneath the voice. We often think communication is about words, the sentences we form, the phrases we choose, the clever things we say. But in reality, how we say something carries far more meaning than what we say. The human voice is one of the most powerful instruments of emotional expression. It reveals confidence, insecurity, tension, desire, fear, and even deception, all hidden beneath ordinary conversation. When you learn to listen beyond words, you start hearing what people truly mean, not just what they say. The voice becomes a window into the emotional world behind the mask. Every pause, pitch change, and breath carries a clue if you know how to listen. Listening between the words. Imagine two people saying the exact same sentence, "I'm fine." One says it quickly, with a light tone and relaxed breathing. The other says it slowly, voice flat, exhaling as if deflating. The words are identical, but the meanings couldn't be more different. One says, "I really am fine." The other says, "I'm not fine, but I don't want to talk about it." That difference lies in tone, the music of the voice. Tone conveys emotion, intention, and truth far more reliably than vocabulary ever can. When someone speaks, listen for how the sound feels, not just what it says. The voice reflects the body. The voice is not separate from the body, it's born from it. A tense voice often comes from a tense body. When someone's shoulders are tight or their jaw is clenched, you can hear it. The words may sound strained, clipped, or shallow. A relaxed, confident person usually breathes from the diaphragm. Their voice is steady, warm, resonant. When people are nervous, they breathe from the chest, making their voice higher and thinner. You can detect anxiety before you see it, just by hearing the shift in tone or rhythm. If you want to read people better, learn to listen not just to the sound of their voice, but to the state of their body that produces it. Rhythm, speed, and flow. Our speaking rhythm is like a fingerprint, unique and deeply revealing. When people are calm and confident, their rhythm tends to be smooth and measured. They take their time to express thoughts clearly. When they're nervous, excited, or dishonest, their pace often changes, suddenly speeding up, slowing down, stumbling, or repeating words. Notice the flow of speech. Does it feel natural or forced? Do pauses appear at logical moments, or do they seem awkward and uncertain? Pauses are powerful. They can signal reflection, hesitation, or suppression. If someone normally speaks quickly, but suddenly becomes slow and deliberate, it may mean they're choosing words carefully, often because they're aware of being judged or hiding something. On the other hand, a slow speaker who suddenly rushes through part of a story might be trying to gloss over a detail. Speech isn't just about words, it's about rhythm, and rhythm never lies. Volume and power. Volume is energy. It tells you how strongly someone feels, how much control they want, and how safe they feel expressing themselves. When people speak loudly, it can indicate confidence or a need to dominate. When their voice drops to a whisper, it may mean secrecy, vulnerability, or insecurity. But don't assume loud means powerful or quiet means weak. Some of the most confident people speak softly because they don't need to prove themselves. What matters most is the change in volume. If someone's voice suddenly drops or rises during a particular topic, pay attention. That shift reveals emotion. People often lower their voice when they feel uncertain or threatened, and raise it when they're defending something important. Listening to those changes gives you insight into where their emotions lie, what energizes them, what frightens them, and what they value most. The music of emotion. Emotion lives in pitch and tone. A rising pitch can signal excitement, surprise, or stress. A falling pitch often indicates calm, confidence, or finality. Listen for micro fluctuations, the tiny tremors, sighs, or laughs that slip between sentences. A soft sigh before answering may show fatigue or sadness. A little laugh after a statement can signal discomfort, a way to soften tension. When someone's tone warms, they feel connected. When it sharpens, they're defending themselves. When it flattens, they're disengaged or suppressing something. Think of a conversation as music. You're not just hearing lyrics, you're listening for tempo, melody, and mood. The hidden meaning of silence. Silence is not the absence of communication. It's a message of its own, sometimes louder than words. People pause for many reasons: to think, to protect themselves, to test your reaction, or to calm their emotions. When someone hesitates before answering a simple question, it might mean they're uncertain, uncomfortable, or concealing part of the truth. But it could also mean they're being thoughtful. Don't rush to fill silence. Let it breathe. Silence often reveals what words can't. A person who stays quiet when expected to speak is telling you something, maybe that they feel unsafe or overwhelmed, or simply don't trust you enough to be open yet. In those moments, patience is your greatest tool. When you allow silence, people eventually show you who they are. Mirroring and vocal connection. Have you ever noticed how friends or couples begin to sound alike over time? They adopt each other's rhythm, tone, even vocabulary. This is called vocal mirroring, a natural form of empathy. When people feel comfortable and connected, their voices unconsciously synchronize. You can use this to read and build rapport. If someone starts matching your tone or tempo, it's a sign they feel aligned with you. If their rhythm stays distant or disjointed, it might mean they're guarded or disconnected. But mirroring works both ways. When you subtly match someone's vocal energy, you make them feel understood. They relax, the conversation flows. And that's when true observation becomes possible. What lies beneath lies? The voice often betrays deception, not through obvious tells, but through emotional inconsistency. When someone lies, their words and emotions often fall out of sync. They might say, "I'm happy for you," but the tone sounds flat or forced. The mismatch between content and delivery is what gives them away. However, not all inconsistencies mean deceit. Sometimes people simply struggle to express complex feelings. A person may sound angry when they're actually hurt, or cheerful when they're scared. The voice doesn't always reveal truth directly, it reveals conflict. As a reader of people, your job isn't to accuse, it's to notice. Notice when the voice says something, the words do not. That's where the human story lives in contradiction. Training your ear. Becoming sensitive to the voice beneath the voice takes practice. Start by listening with intention. Watch interviews, conversations, or even phone calls, and focus only on tone, speed, and emotion. Try to guess what someone feels without listening to the actual words. You'll be surprised how much you can tell. Then, observe yourself. Record your voice while speaking in different moods. Notice how your tone changes when you're nervous versus relaxed. The more you understand your own vocal patterns, the more easily you'll hear them in others. Remember, listening is not waiting to speak. True listening means becoming still enough to hear what isn't being said. The voice as an emotional mirror. When you listen deeply, people feel it. They sense your attention, and in that space, they reveal more. The voice opens up, the tone softens, the truth emerges. Reading someone's voice is not about judgment, it's about empathy. You're tuning in to the emotion beneath their words, the story behind the sound. You're hearing the human being, not just the message. So, the next time someone speaks to you, listen with your whole self. Hear the tremor in their breath, the rhythm of their pauses, the warmth or chill in their tone, because beneath every voice there is another quiet, emotional, and real. That is the voice worth listening to. Chapter 4. The Eyes Windows to Truth and Deception. They say the eyes are the windows to the soul, and though that might sound poetic, there's more truth in it than most people realize. The eyes are our most expressive feature. They betray emotion faster than words, faster than posture, faster even than tone. They can signal curiosity, affection, fear, anger, deceit, or boredom, sometimes all in the span of a few seconds. When you learn to read eyes, you begin to perceive the inner workings of a person's thoughts and feelings in real time. It's not about magic or manipulation, it's about awareness. The eyes don't just look, they reveal. The eyes and attention. The most fundamental thing eyes reveal is where attention goes. Humans instinctively look toward what they find important. Watch where someone's eyes land during a conversation, that's where their mind is. If a person looks directly at you when you speak, they're engaged, or at least trying to appear so. If their eyes wander, they may be distracted or disinterested. But not all wandering eyes mean rudeness. Sometimes they're thinking, visualizing, or processing information. In fact, many people look away to think. This is called cognitive gaze aversion. When the brain is working hard, it often breaks eye contact to focus better. So, before assuming someone's disinterested, consider what's happening inside their mind. A skilled observer learns to see why someone looks away, not just that they do. Is their gaze distant and unfocused, lost in thought, or darting quickly, nervous and evasive? The difference is everything. Eye contact. The dance of connection. Eye contact is one of the most powerful non-verbal exchanges humans have. It creates intimacy, builds trust, and signals confidence. But it's also one of the most easily misunderstood. Too little eye contact and you may seem shy, uncertain, or deceptive. Too much, and you can come across as aggressive, invasive, or domineering. True connection lies in balance, a natural rhythm of looking and looking away. When people feel safe and understood, their eye contact becomes fluid, almost rhythmic. When they feel anxious or defensive, it becomes rigid or forced. You can often sense someone's emotional state simply by the texture of their gaze. Is it soft and steady, sharp and calculating, flickering and uncertain? The eyes speak in tone just like voices do. For example, someone genuinely interested in you will make eye contact that feels warm, steady, but not piercing. Someone pretending to listen will hold eye contact too firmly, as if rehearsing sincerity. The difference is subtle, but the feeling it gives you is not. The pupils, mirrors of emotion. Your pupils are tiny, powerful truth-tellers. They react instantly to emotion, expanding in pleasure, shrinking in discomfort. Unlike facial expressions, you can't control them consciously. When we see something or someone we like, our pupils dilate, letting in more light, an ancient signal of attraction and interest. When we feel threatened or repulsed, they contract. This reaction is so automatic that skilled negotiators, poker players, and even interrogators learn to watch for it. You don't need to stare into someone's eyes for long to notice this. Just observe how their pupils shift in different contexts when they greet a friend, when they hear bad news, when a certain topic arises. Those tiny changes often reveal what their words conceal. Of course, light affects pupil size too, so context again matters. Don't read emotion in isolation, but when you see a pattern of dilation or constriction tied to emotion, you've spotted truth beneath the surface. Blinking, movement, and tension. Eyes aren't static, they move, blink, and shift rhythmically. These movements often correspond to the speaker's emotional and mental state. Rapid blinking can indicate stress, anxiety, or discomfort, the body's reflex when adrenaline rises. A sudden pause in blinking, on the other hand, often signals focus or tension. You might notice this in people telling a story. They want you to believe they blink less, almost as if trying to freeze their expression. Averting the eyes downward can mean submission or sadness. Looking up may show thought or exasperation. Sideways glances can suggest suspicion or interest, depending on the accompanying facial cues. When people feel calm and authentic, their eyes move naturally. When they're trying too hard to appear natural, their movements stiffen or become erratic. The key again isn't to memorize tells, but to recognize shifts. Compare how someone's eyes behave when they're relaxed versus when they're tense. The difference is the truth. Lies, truth, and the myth of the shifty gaze. One of the oldest myths in body language is that liars can't look you in the eye. In reality, many skilled liars look you straight in the eye, precisely because they know that's what you expect. Deception isn't about where someone looks, it's about how their gaze changes. Truthful people usually maintain consistent, natural patterns of eye movement. Liars, however, often break those patterns. Their eye contact becomes forced, uneven, or overly deliberate. You might notice their gaze freezing for too long, or shifting suddenly at key moments, or their pupils may constrict as the body experiences stress while fabricating details. Sometimes they blink rapidly, right after lying, the tension released through the body's attempt to self-regulate. But remember, not every nervous behavior means dishonesty. Guilt, fear, embarrassment, and anxiety can produce the same physical reactions. The art of reading eyes isn't about accusation, it's about awareness. You're not judging truth, you're noticing conflict. The power of mutual gaze. When two people meet eyes and hold them in harmony, something remarkable happens. Their nervous systems synchronize, heart rates slow, mirror neurons fire, and connection deepens. This is why shared eye contact feels intimate, and why we often avoid it when we're hiding something or feeling vulnerable. It's like being seen too deeply, too fast. In conversation, the amount of eye contact you share can shape the emotional tone. Maintaining open, steady gaze signals presence. Breaking eye contact too often may suggest avoidance. The most skilled communicators flow naturally between both holding eye contact to connect, breaking it to think, and returning to reaffirm understanding. Practice this rhythm in your own interactions. You'll find that people open up more when they feel seen, but not scrutinized. Cultural nuance and individual style. Not everyone uses their eyes the same way. Culture, upbringing, and personality play enormous roles. In some cultures, direct eye contact is a sign of honesty and respect. In others, it's seen as rude or confrontational. Introverted people might avoid eye contact not from deceit, but from shyness. To truly read eyes, you must first understand the person, not just the pattern. Establish a baseline. How do their eyes behave when relaxed, joking, or at ease? Then, when something changes, you'll know it means something. The danger of reading eyes without context is projection, seeing what you expect instead of what's real. The goal isn't to catch people, it's to understand them. Practicing the art of observation. Start simple. Watch people's eyes during everyday conversations. Notice how they shift when a subject changes, how their pupils react to emotion, how their blink rate speeds up or slows down. When you speak, notice who looks at you directly, who glances aside, and who looks down. Don't assign meaning immediately, just observe. Over time, patterns will emerge. Next, practice self-awareness. How do your eyes behave? Do you look away when uncomfortable? Hold someone's gaze too long when you want to prove confidence? The better you understand your own visual habits, the more accurately you'll read others. The eyes as a bridge. The eyes don't just reveal emotion, they create it. When you look at someone with genuine attention, their body responds. They relax, their tone softens, their guard lowers, because being truly seen is one of the deepest human needs. To read someone's eyes well, you must look with empathy, not interrogation. You're not searching for secrets, you're listening for humanity. You're reading emotion, not evidence. When you meet someone's eyes and hold their gaze with warmth and curiosity, you create a bridge, a connection built on understanding. Through that bridge, truth passes easily. The eyes will always be your most honest guide. They can't be coached, rehearsed, or entirely concealed. They tell stories that words never could, stories of hope, fear, affection, and pain. To read people like a book, start by reading the pages written in their eyes, because within those fleeting glances lies everything they're too careful, too guarded, or too afraid to say aloud. Chapter 5. The Emotional Blueprint. Every person you meet carries an invisible signature, a pattern that shapes how they feel, express, and connect. This is their emotional blueprint, the silent design of how they interpret the world. It determines what they fear, what they crave, how they react under pressure, and how they love. To read people deeply, not just their gestures or tone, but their truth, you must learn to recognize this blueprint, because behind every expression, behind every habit or reaction, lies emotion. And emotion is the most honest language a human can speak. Emotion as the core of behavior. Every action a person takes is driven by emotion, whether they admit it or not. Logic is often the mask emotion wears to appear respectable. We make decisions with feelings first, and then use logic to justify them afterward. A person may claim they're angry because something was unfair, but beneath that, they may actually feel unseen or powerless. Someone might appear controlling, but deep down, they're terrified of losing security. A friend who cracks jokes constantly may not be carefree, they may be hiding anxiety or pain behind humor. To read people well, you must look beneath the surface emotion to the feeling that fuels it. Anger is often fear in disguise. Confidence can sometimes hide insecurity. Calmness may mask detachment. Laughter may echo loneliness. When you train yourself to see emotion as the root, not the result, people start to make sense. Emotional congruence and incongruence. When someone's words and emotions align, we call it congruence. When they don't, there's incongruence, a mismatch between what's said and what's felt. Congruence is like a clear river. Everything flows naturally. You hear, "I'm happy for you," and you feel that it's true. The tone, body, and expression all harmonize. Incongruence, on the other hand, feels like static. The words say one thing, but the body says another. The smile doesn't reach the eyes, the tone is slightly flat, the laughter sounds forced. These contradictions are where truth hides. In social situations, most people pick up on incongruence unconsciously. They get a weird feeling about someone. But if you learn to consciously identify those emotional mismatches, You can see what others only sense. Ask yourself in each interaction, do this person's words and emotions match? If they don't, what emotion feels more real than the one they're showing? For example, asterisk, they say, "I'm fine," but their jaw tightens, you sense anger or hurt. Asterisk, they claim, "I'm not nervous," but their laugh is brittle, you sense anxiety. Asterisk, they say, "I don't care," but their eyes are wide and searching, you sense attachment. People often reveal the truth by accident. Your job is to notice the cracks where emotion leaks through. Reading emotional energy. Every person carries a kind of emotional temperature, an energy that fills the space around them. You can feel it before a word is spoken. Walk into a room where two people just argued, and you'll sense tension immediately, even if they're smiling. Energy lingers. Emotion speaks, even in silence. Emotional energy is the sum of someone's tone, posture, rhythm, and breathing. Asterisk, high energy might mean enthusiasm, anger, or anxiety. Asterisk, low energy might mean sadness, calmness, or detachment. The content of emotion isn't in how big it is, but in how aligned it feels. When you sense emotional intensity without matching context, someone acting overly cheerful in a serious moment or unusually quiet in a happy one, that misalignment is a clue. People use energy to mask what they're really feeling. Learn to read the temperature of emotion in a room, not just the words bouncing around in it. The emotional filter. How people see the world. Everyone views life through an emotional lens shaped by past experiences. This filter determines what they notice, what they fear, and how they interpret behavior. A person who grew up feeling abandoned might interpret delayed texts as rejection. Someone who's been betrayed might see dishonesty in harmless mistakes. A perfectionist might hear feedback as criticism, even when it's meant kindly. When you understand someone's emotional filter, you understand their reactions. You stop taking their behavior personally. You see the story behind it. Look for recurring emotional patterns, the feelings that keep showing up in a person's words, complaints, or choices. These patterns are the blueprint. If someone repeatedly feels disrespected, that's a theme of worth. If they often feel unsafe, that's a theme of control. If they constantly feel misunderstood, that's a theme of connection. When you identify that emotional story, you no longer get lost in their surface behavior. You see the design beneath it. The masks people wear. Everyone wears emotional masks, personas they use to feel safe, accepted, or strong. These masks are not deceitful, they're protective. The confident leader may wear the mask of authority to hide vulnerability. The jokester may wear humor to hide sadness. The quiet observer may wear detachment to avoid rejection. When you read people, don't stop at the mask. Ask silently, what emotion is this mask protecting? If someone always acts superior, what are they protecting? Usually, insecurity. If someone always seeks approval, what are they craving? Usually love or safety. If someone never asks for help, what are they afraid of? Usually dependence or rejection. Masks are not lies, they are survival strategies. When you can see the person behind the performance, empathy replaces judgment. Emotional contagion, how feelings spread. Emotion is contagious. Without realizing it, we mirror the moods of those around us. This is why you can walk away from a conversation with a cheerful person feeling lighter, or leave a room with a tense person feeling drained. People constantly transmit emotional cues through tone, facial expression, and energy. Reading people well means noticing not only what they feel, but how it affects you. Your own emotional reaction is often the first clue to theirs. If you suddenly feel anxious, irritated, or sad around someone who's smiling, pause and ask, "Is this feeling mine, or am I picking up theirs?" Sensitive readers don't just observe emotion, they feel it. The trick is to notice it without becoming it. How to recognize hidden emotions. Some people are open books, others are locked vaults. But even the most guarded person leaks emotion through subtle tells. Look for micro-expressions, tiny flashes of sadness, anger, or fear that vanish in a heartbeat. Watch the corners of the mouth, the space between the eyebrows, the soft muscles around the eyes. Listen for emotional hesitations, a long pause before answering a painful question, a nervous laugh after a serious statement. Pay attention to tone shifts when the voice suddenly hardens or softens, rises or falls. Notice body tension. Shoulders tighten when holding back tears. Hands fidget when concealing fear. The more someone tries to appear neutral, the more their body works to contain emotion, and the harder it becomes to hide. Emotional empathy versus emotional projection. To read people accurately, you must separate empathy from projection. Empathy is when you sense what someone feels and understand it from their perspective. Projection is when you assume they feel what you would feel in their place. The difference is awareness. Don't read people through your own emotional filter. Ask, what makes sense for them based on who they are, not who I am? If a friend doesn't text back, your instinct might say they're angry. But if you know they retreat when stressed, their silence might actually mean they're overwhelmed. When you remove your assumptions, you make space for truth. The gift of seeing emotion clearly. When you can read someone's emotional blueprint, you begin to see the full architecture of their humanity. You understand not just how they act, but why. You stop reacting to their surface behavior and start responding to their inner need. Someone's anger becomes a cry for respect. Their withdrawal becomes a call for safety. Their perfectionism becomes a plea for reassurance. Reading emotion isn't about labeling people, it's about liberating them from being misunderstood. Developing your emotional vision. Practice emotional observation like you would physical observation. Start by noticing small things. Asterisk. How does someone's face change when they're listening versus speaking? Asterisk. What emotions repeat in their stories? Asterisk. How does their energy shift when certain names or topics come up? Reflect after each interaction. What did you feel they were really saying? Did their mood shift during the conversation? What might have triggered that change? The more you do this, the more fluent you become in emotional language. The blueprint within you. Finally, remember that you have an emotional blueprint too. The better you understand your own, your triggers, your fears, your masks, the clearer your reading of others becomes. Because we can only see others as clearly as we see ourselves. When you catch yourself reacting strongly to someone, pause and ask, what part of me is being touched right now? Often, what irritates us in others mirrors something unresolved in ourselves. The true reader of people is also a reader of self. The clearer your emotional awareness, the deeper your empathy, and the more accurate your understanding. Closing thoughts. Emotions are the language beneath all language. They are the ink with which human behavior is written. To read people like a book, you must learn to read that emotional script, the unspoken sentences written in tone, movement, and silence. Every smile, every sigh, every hesitation is a paragraph. Every laugh is a page. Every unspoken feeling is a hidden chapter. When you can see emotion clearly, you stop guessing what people mean. You start feeling it. And that is when true understanding begins, not just of others, but of the shared emotional story that connects us all. Chapter 6. Motivation, Desire, and Fear. Every human action, every word, every decision, every hesitation comes from one of two primal forces, desire or fear. Everything else is built on top of those foundations. Desire pulls us forward, fear holds us back. Together, they shape our behaviors, relationships, and choices more than logic ever will. When you learn to recognize which of these forces is driving a person, you unlock a deeper understanding of them. You begin to see not only what they do, but why they do it. And once you can see why, you can predict how they'll act next, how they'll react under pressure, and even how they'll change over time. This is the heart of reading motivation, learning to recognize the invisible strings behind behavior. The two engines, desire and fear. Desire is the instinct to move towards something: success, love, comfort, recognition, safety, meaning. It fuels growth and risk-taking. Fear is the instinct to move away from rejection, loss, pain, shame, or failure. It fuels caution and protection. Every person has both engines running at all times, but one usually takes the lead. Some people live primarily from desire, ambitious, curious, hungry for experience. Others live mostly from fear, careful, guarded, always calculating what could go wrong. Understanding this balance in someone reveals their worldview. Are they chasing life or defending against it? You can hear it in their language. Asterisk. Desire-driven people say, "I want to." "I'm going to try." "I think I can." Asterisk. Fear-driven people say, "I don't want to mess up. I just want to be safe." What if it fails? Neither is right or wrong. Both have wisdom. But if you can spot which engine is steering someone, you can read them with remarkable accuracy. Hidden desires, the real drivers. People rarely reveal their true desires directly. They speak about goals, money, relationships, career, success, but those are just surface expressions. Beneath every goal is an emotional driver. Here's the truth. We don't want things. We want feelings. We want the feeling of freedom that money brings, the feeling of belonging that love provides, the feeling of importance that success offers, the feeling of peace that control gives us. When you read people, look for those feelings. Ask yourself, what emotion is this person truly chasing? A man who works tirelessly for status may really crave acceptance. A woman who avoids commitment may crave independence. A friend who constantly seeks validation may just want to feel worthy. These deeper desires shape every interaction. They're the silent motivations beneath the mask. To uncover them, watch for emotional highs and lows. When someone lights up during conversation, that's desire speaking. When they shut down, that's fear. The architecture of fear. If desire is the wind that fills our sails, fear is the anchor that keeps us from drifting too far. Fear protects, but it also limits. It hides in subtle ways: avoidance, procrastination, sarcasm, defensiveness, control. The most common fears behind human behavior are: 1. Fear of rejection. The need to be accepted and liked. 2. Fear of failure. The need to avoid shame or disappointment. 3. Fear of loss. The need to hold on to what feels safe. 4. Fear of vulnerability. The need to hide weakness or pain. 5. Fear of insignificance. The need to matter. Each of these fears creates a predictable pattern. For example, asterisk. Someone afraid of rejection may act overly agreeable, saying yes to everything. Asterisk. Someone afraid of failure might over-prepare or avoid risk entirely. Asterisk. Someone afraid of vulnerability may deflect with humor or coldness. When you learn to see the fear underneath behavior, you stop reacting to the surface and start understanding the root. If a friend lashes out, it's not always anger, sometimes it's fear of being hurt. If a coworker micromanages, it's not control, it's fear of losing stability. If a partner withdraws, it's not indifference, it's fear of being rejected first. Fear is the emotion most people hide behind their strongest defenses. Motivation and identity. Every person builds a story about who they are, a self-concept, and most of their motivation comes from protecting or proving that story. If someone sees themselves as the strong one, they'll avoid showing weakness. If they believe they're the smart one, they'll avoid making mistakes. If they think they're the helper, they'll sacrifice their own needs to feel useful. These self-stories are the scripts people live by. When you know someone's script, you can predict their behavior. To identify a person's self-story, listen to their language. Notice what they emphasize when describing themselves. I'm the kind of person who, I could never. Each statement is a clue. Once you understand the story someone is protecting, you'll see why they react so strongly when that identity is threatened. It's not about the situation, it's about the meaning it holds for their sense of self. The push and pull of human behavior. Every decision we make exists between two poles: what we want to move toward, desire, and what we want to avoid, fear. Even small choices reflect this dance. Someone might want to start a business, desire for freedom, but hesitate, fear of failure. A person might want love, desire for connection, but sabotage relationships, fear of rejection. If you can identify both sides of that tension, the pull and the push, you'll understand their inner conflict. Most people's behavior makes perfect sense once you see the tug-of-war between the two forces. When someone says, I really want to change, but I can't, they're caught between fear and desire. The side that wins is the one that feels safer in the moment. Predicting behavior through motivation. Here's a simple truth about human nature. People will always move in the direction of their strongest emotion, not what's most logical, what feels most urgent. If you know what someone desires most and fears most, you can predict their next move with surprising accuracy. For example, asterisk. In negotiation, a person motivated by fear of loss will make concessions to avoid risk. Asterisk. In love, someone driven by the desire for validation might cling tightly or overgive. Asterisk. In conflict, someone afraid of rejection might avoid confrontation even when angry. When you read people through this lens, you stop being surprised by their behavior. You start expecting it not with judgment, but with understanding. The mask of logic. People rarely admit that emotion drives them. They rationalize instead. We say we're making smart decisions, but often we're just finding logical excuses for emotional needs. Someone might claim they're staying in a bad job for stability, but it's really fear of the unknown. Another person might justify a breakup as not the right time, when it's really fear of being hurt again. The human mind is a master storyteller, but emotion is always the author. When someone gives you reasons, listen politely, then look at what their behavior actually serves. Does it protect them from pain or move them toward joy? That answer will tell you the truth. How to read motivation in real time. In every interaction, ask yourself 3 questions. 1. What does this person want right now? 2. What are they afraid will happen if they don't get it? 3. How far will they go to satisfy that need or avoid that fear? Their words, tone, and body language will give you clues. Watch for emotional spikes, the moments when they light up or shut down. That's where motivation lives. If someone suddenly grows defensive, you've touched a fear. If they lean in or get animated, you've triggered a desire. If they go quiet, you've hit a boundary or a pain point. Learn to read those transitions. They are emotional fingerprints. Understanding without manipulating. Reading motivation is powerful, but it's not meant to be weaponized. The goal is not to manipulate others, but to meet them with understanding. When you know what drives someone, you can speak to their needs directly. You can offer reassurance to someone ruled by fear, or inspiration to someone driven by desire. True readers of people don't use insight to control, they use it to connect. They see through masks without tearing them off. Because underneath every motivation, every desire, every fear is the same thing: a longing to feel safe, seen, and significant. Discovering your own drivers. Finally, turn your lens inward. What motivates you? What do you most crave, and what do you most avoid? You might realize that your ambition hides fear of inadequacy, or your independence hides fear of dependence, or your helpfulness hides fear of being unneeded. The more honestly you see your own desires and fears, the clearer your vision of others becomes. You stop projecting your motives onto them and start seeing theirs for what they are. Self-awareness is the compass that keeps empathy true. Closing thoughts. Every person you meet is a moving balance between hope and fear, between the hunger for something more and the instinct to protect what is. To read people like a book, you must learn to see which page they're on. Are they chasing something beautiful or running from something painful? Are they being pulled by desire or pushed by fear? Because once you see that, you'll understand them, not just their actions, but their essence. You'll see the child inside every adult, still longing for safety and love. And perhaps the most powerful realization of all, when you can read the desires and fears of others with compassion, you begin to understand your own. Chapter 7. The Mirror Effect, Becoming the Reader and the Read. There's a quiet irony in learning to read people. The better you become at seeing others, the more clearly you begin to see yourself. Every observation, every reaction, every interpretation you make reflects something within you. You don't just read people, you mirror them. And in that mirror, your own patterns, insecurities, and strengths start to appear. This final chapter is not about decoding others, but about balancing the art of reading with the discipline of self-awareness. Because true understanding doesn't come from analyzing others, it comes from connecting to them. And connection can only exist between two people who are both seen. To become a true reader of people, you must first understand that every human interaction is a reflection, a mirror in motion, and you are part of the picture. The law of reflection. Human beings are natural mirrors. Our nervous systems are wired for empathy through what scientists call mirror neurons, brain cells, that fire not only when we perform an action, but when we observe someone else performing it. This is why you cringe when you see someone fall, or why you yawn when someone else does. You feel what they feel, often without realizing it. This biological mirroring extends far beyond physical reactions. We subconsciously reflect posture, tone, emotion, and even breathing rhythm. When two people connect deeply, their bodies literally begin to synchronize, heart rates align, breathing tempos match, and language patterns echo one another. This is the mirror effect in its purest form, the invisible dance of connection where two people become one emotional system for a moment. The more attuned you are to this dance, the better you can read it, and the more gracefully you can lead it. But that power comes with a price. As you read others, they are reading you too. What you project, you attract. Every signal you send through body language, tone, energy, and attitude tells others how to treat you. People respond not to who you are, but to who you appear to be. If you carry tension, others feel it. If you exude calm, they mirror it. If you're open and relaxed, people open in return. But if you're guarded or defensive, they'll match that too. That's the first rule of the mirror effect. The energy you bring into a room is the one that will be reflected back to you. Imagine meeting two people. One greets you with a warm, genuine smile, eyes soft and curious. The other looks away, fidgeting, offering a polite but distant handshake. Instantly, your body decides how safe it feels. Without words, you begin to mirror their level of openness. If you want to read people better, start by managing the energy you broadcast. You can't see others clearly if your own emotional signal is cloudy or distorted. Emotional contagion, the unseen exchange. Every conversation is an emotional transaction. Even when the topic is logical, the tone is emotional. People constantly influence each other's states without realizing it. This is called emotional contagion. Spend time with someone anxious, and your own chest tightens. Sit with someone peaceful, and your breathing slows. This exchange happens silently, but it shapes every interaction. To master the mirror effect, you must learn to recognize when you're absorbing someone else's energy and when you're projecting your own. The moment you feel a sudden mood shift, irritation, sadness, unease, pause and ask, "Is this mine or theirs?" Most people confuse emotional empathy with emotional absorption. Being empathic doesn't mean carrying other people's feelings. It means recognizing them without losing yourself in them. The best readers of people are both open and grounded, receptive to emotion, yet anchored in their own center. Self-awareness. Your inner mirror. You can't read others accurately if you can't read yourself. Why? Because your biases, emotions, and insecurities distort what you see. If you dislike a certain trait in someone, you might exaggerate it because it reflects something you dislike in yourself. If you crave approval, you might misinterpret kindness as affection. If you fear confrontation, you might mistake assertiveness for aggression. Every perception passes through the filter of your own experience. So before you analyze someone else, ask yourself, what part of me is responding right now? For example, asterisk. If someone's confidence annoys you, is it their arrogance or your insecurity that's reacting? Asterisk. If someone's silence bothers you, are they distant or are you uncomfortable with stillness? Asterisk. If someone's criticism stings, is it unfair or does it touch something you already believe about yourself? Self-awareness removes distortion. It allows you to see people as they are, not as your emotions paint them. The mirror of conflict. Conflict reveals truth faster than comfort. When tensions rise, masks drop, and both sides' deeper patterns emerge. The next time you find yourself in disagreement, observe instead of defend. Watch how you react. Do you attack, withdraw, justify, or freeze? Those instincts are your emotional blueprint in action. Conflict mirrors not only the other person's triggers, but your own. Two people rarely fight about the surface issue. They fight about what that issue means to their self-worth or safety. For example, when one person says, "You never listen," they may really mean, "I don't feel valued." The other responds defensively, not because of the accusation, but because deep down, they feel misunderstood. The key is to look in the mirror. What is this conflict showing me about myself? What need, fear, or wound is being reflected back? Once you can answer that honestly, you begin to understand both sides. Authentic presence, the silent teacher. When you walk into a room with authentic presence, calm, open, self-aware, you don't need to read people. They reveal themselves naturally. This is the paradox of human behavior. The more you try to analyze others, the more guarded they become. But when you approach them with genuine curiosity and no agenda, their defenses melt. Authenticity invites authenticity. People can sense when your attention is genuine, when you're not performing, not judging, just seeing. That's when the mirror clears. To cultivate this presence, practice stillness. Before entering a conversation, take a moment to center your attention. Drop the internal commentary, the urge to impress, to be right, to be liked. Instead, bring your full awareness to the person before you. When you're fully present, others feel safe enough to be real. And in that space, reading them isn't an act of effort, it's an act of connection. The double mirror. When people reflect you back, sometimes people act as mirrors for what you need to learn. The colleague who frustrates you, the partner who triggers you, the friend who challenges you, each reveals a part of yourself you might not want to face. The overly critical boss might be showing you your own self-doubt. The clingy friend might highlight your discomfort with emotional closeness. The arrogant stranger might mirror your hidden desire for validation. Instead of labeling others as difficult, ask, what part of me do they reflect that I've been avoiding? This mindset transforms relationships from battlegrounds into classrooms. Every encounter becomes a chance to see yourself more clearly, and the clearer you become, the clearer others appear. Balancing empathy and boundaries. As you grow more skilled at reading people, you'll start feeling emotions around you more intensely. You'll pick up subtle cues, discomfort, insecurity, sadness that others overlook. This sensitivity is a gift, but it needs balance. Without boundaries, empathy can turn into emotional overload. You might begin to carry others' pain as your own or feel responsible for their feelings. The key is compassionate detachment, staying open-hearted but centered. You can care deeply without absorbing. You can understand someone's emotion without trying to fix it. Imagine your empathy as a mirror, not a sponge. A mirror reflects truth clearly, but it doesn't hold on to what it reflects. Be that mirror present, observant, but self-contained. The mirror and the message. The final secret of the mirror effect is this: how people react to you reveals how they experience themselves. If someone opens up easily, it means you made them feel safe. If they grow defensive, it means something about your presence, tone, posture, or words touched a wound or fear. Their reaction is data, not a judgment of your worth. You can use this information not to manipulate, but to adjust. If someone grows distant, soften your tone. If they tense up, give space. If they lean in, stay present. The world reflects your energy back to you constantly. Once you become aware of it, you can fine-tune your presence to create deeper harmony with those around you, becoming the reader and the read. At the beginning of this journey, you learn to observe others, their body, voice, and eyes. You studied their emotions, desires, and fears. But now, at the end, you realize that reading people isn't a one-way process. It's a dialogue between souls. When you meet someone, you're not simply looking at them, you're looking into a mirror. What you notice in them reveals what you carry within. What you misunderstand in them reveals where you haven't yet understood yourself. True mastery isn't about decoding others perfectly, it's about becoming transparent enough that truth flows both ways. You see others clearly because you're no longer clouded by your own projections. That's what it means to become both the reader and the read. The final reflection. Reading people is ultimately not about power or persuasion, it's about empathy. It's about dissolving the barriers that keep us misaligned and helping us meet in truth. The more you study others, the more you realize we are all built from the same ingredients: hope, fear, love, insecurity, and longing. We all want to be seen, understood, and accepted to feel safe enough to drop the masks. So, as you move through life, don't just analyze others, understand them. Don't just observe, connect. Don't just read the book of another person, let them read you too. Because when two people meet without pretense, without judgment, without fear, when they both hold the mirror steady, something extraordinary happens. Both see themselves more clearly. And in that shared reflection lies the deepest truth of all, that every person you read is a chapter in the same story, the story of being human. Chapter 8. The Art of Human Understanding. Understanding people is not a trick, a formula, or a shortcut. It's an art, a living, breathing practice that deepens with time, patience, and compassion. It's not about outsmarting others or predicting every move they'll make. It's about seeing them, truly seeing beyond behavior, beyond words, beyond masks. By now, you've learned how to observe body language, read tone, recognize emotion, and uncover hidden motivation. But this final chapter is about something greater, the heart of it all, how to use what you see to create connection, empathy, and truth. Because reading people like a book is not the destination, understanding them is. The evolution from reader to understander. When you first begin studying human behavior, it feels like detective work. You look for clues, signs, and patterns. You test your interpretations, watch reactions, and notice what others miss. It's thrilling, the world becomes alive with meaning. But over time, you realize something humbling. Understanding people isn't about collecting information, it's about cultivating awareness. It's not an external skill as much as it is an internal shift. You stop asking, "What's wrong with them?" and start asking. You stop labeling behaviors as good or bad and begin to see them as expressions of need. You stop trying to figure people out and start simply being present with them. That's the moment you evolve from a reader of people to an understander of humans. Listening beyond words. The foundation of human understanding is listening, not passive hearing, but active, compassionate listening. When most people listen, they're waiting to respond. Their mind races ahead, preparing the next argument, question, or defense. But genuine listening has no agenda. It's quiet. It's curious. It's patient enough to let silence speak. When you truly listen, people feel it. They relax. They reveal more. They sense they're in the presence of someone who doesn't want to fix them or judge them, only to understand. Listening is more than catching words. It's noticing what's not said, the hesitation before a confession, the pause before a subject change, the tremor behind laughter. Sometimes, what someone avoids tells you more than what they admit. If you can learn to hold space for others, a space free of interruption, correction, or criticism, you'll start hearing the truth that lives between the lines. The power of emotional validation. One of the simplest, yet most profound ways to understand someone is through emotional validation. It means acknowledging what another person feels, not necessarily agreeing with it, but showing that it makes sense. When someone says, "I'm angry," don't rush to fix it. When they say, "I'm scared," don't try to reassure them right away. Instead, start with, "That makes sense. I can see why you'd feel that way." Those few words can dissolve defensiveness because they communicate something powerful. You're allowed to feel what you feel. People don't open up to those who are right. They open up to those who make them feel safe. And the safest feeling in the world is being understood without needing to explain yourself. Compassion over judgment. Judgment closes the door to understanding. Compassion opens it. When you catch yourself judging someone's choices, remember this: no one's behavior exists in a vacuum. Everyone has reasons, even if they're invisible to you. That rude coworker might be exhausted from caring for a sick parent. That angry driver might be drowning in grief. That withdrawn friend might be silently battling depression. Understanding doesn't mean excusing harm, it means seeing the story behind the action. When you view people through the lens of compassion, you stop labeling and start connecting. You begin to realize that behind every unkind act is an unmet need. Behind every arrogance is insecurity. Behind every mask is a moment that hurt too much to show. When you choose compassion over judgment, you don't lose power, you gain depth. Presence, the ultimate superpower. There is one quality that unites all great readers of people: presence. Presence is the art of being fully here, without distraction or performance. It's when your attention stops scattering between the past and future and rests completely in the now. In presence, you don't just observe people, you feel them. You sense the energy in the room, the shift in tone, the unspoken emotion beneath a word. You hear more than sound. You perceive rhythm, honesty, and vulnerability. Presence is magnetic. When you're truly present, people instinctively trust you. They can tell you're not pretending, not analyzing, not planning your next move. You're simply there, engaged and aware. Presence gives you the power to read people effortlessly because it tunes you into the frequency where truth lives the moment itself. Understanding through empathy. Empathy is not about agreeing with someone's perspective. It's about stepping into their world long enough to feel it from their side. When you empathize, you don't have to fix anything. You just walk beside the person in their emotional landscape. You look through their eyes for a moment. You feel the weight of their thoughts, the pull of their fears, the warmth of their hopes. You might not share their experience, but you can share the humanity of it. To practice empathy, start by asking yourself, if I lived this person's story, their upbringing, fears, struggles, and memories, would I act any differently? The answer is almost always no. That question dissolves judgment instantly and replaces it with humility. You stop seeing people as puzzles and start seeing them as reflections of the same human experience you share. When to stop reading and start relating. The danger of learning to read people is becoming detached, turning every interaction into analysis. You start scanning micro-expressions and decoding tone instead of simply being with the person. But understanding is not found in analysis. It's found in connection. At some point, you must stop reading and start relating. Step out of your observer role and into your human one. Ask questions not to study, but to know. Listen not to decode, but to connect. Respond not to control, but to share. Reading people is the first step. Relating to them is the goal, the courage to be read. If you truly want to understand others, you must allow yourself to be understood. That means vulnerability. Letting people read you is an act of courage. It means lowering your defenses, revealing your feelings, admitting uncertainty, and being transparent about who you are. Most people crave connection but fear exposure. They hide their flaws, their doubts, their past, and in doing so, they also hide their capacity to connect. When you show your humanity, you give others permission to show theirs. When you let someone see your truth, they begin to trust you with theirs. Being an open book doesn't make you weak, it makes you real. And realness is magnetic, it invites authenticity wherever it's given. The shared story of humanity. Once you've observed enough people, you realize something profound. Despite our differences in culture, belief, and background, we are all telling the same emotional story. The faces change, The settings differ, but the chapters are the same: love and loss, fear and hope, pride and regret, longing and forgiveness. Everyone wants to be seen, heard, valued, and safe. Everyone hides a part of themselves out of fear of rejection. Everyone carries a memory that changed them, a dream they still chase, and a pain they don't talk about. When you read people through this lens, not as strangers, but as fellow travelers, empathy becomes effortless. You stop asking, "What's wrong with them?" and start whispering, "I see myself in them." That is the highest form of understanding, recognizing yourself in another. The art of letting people be. Sometimes, the most powerful understanding is silence, the act of simply letting people be as they are. Not everyone wants to be decoded. Not everyone is ready to be understood. Some people need time, distance, or experience before they can face their own truth. Your role is not to rush that process. When you truly understand people, you stop forcing change. You meet them where they are. You offer acceptance, not correction. You allow them to unfold at their own pace, just as you have. Because understanding is not control, it's trust. Trust in the process of being human. The final lesson. Reading people like a book gives you knowledge. Understanding people gives you wisdom. And wisdom, unlike knowledge, is not about accumulation, it's about compassion. In every conversation, in every glance, in every silence, there's a story unfolding. You can choose to skim the surface or read deeply. You can choose to analyze or to connect. The art of human understanding is learning to do both, to see with clarity and feel with empathy. When you master this art, you don't just move through the world more intelligently, you move through it more gently. You begin to notice the beauty in complexity, the strength in vulnerability, and the sameness beneath difference. And you realize that to understand people is to understand yourself, because we are, each of us, pages of the same book written in different handwriting. So keep reading, but never stop feeling. Keep observing, but never stop caring. Keep learning, but above all, keep understanding. That is the true art of reading people like a book.